Morning, everybody. Brandon here with WxLive with another tropical update for you. It is 7:33, in the morning, 10/21/25. We're getting towards the latter half of the hurricane season, late October, and this is typically the time in the season where we start looking for pop-up storms in the Caribbean. And right on cue, we've got Invest 98L down here in the Southern Caribbean. Pretty impressive looking storm. We'll dive right into it. To note, the National Hurricane Center has not named it yet. The next name would be Melissa, even though the current winds are about 40 knots. I think they're waiting for circulation to close, which the sun is just coming up in the Atlantic Ocean right now. So they'll get a better look at it. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if we got a tropical depression Melissa later this morning. Okay, so here's Invest 98. Oh, want to go back. One thing to note, I did want to say, is the forecast, kind of like, where's this thing going from the National Hurricane Center, is still westerly, which is completely the opposite of what all the hurricane models are saying. And it's important to remember that the National Hurricane Center does forecasts based on other things besides models. And they're in, just their years and years of experience. And so it's important to remember to not just look at the models, to actually look at the forecast tracks from the National Hurricane Center in Miami. Very important. Okay, so here is Invest 98L on the satellite loop here. It's actually a pretty interesting satellite loop. First things first, you can see the explosion of thunderstorms, which is a sign of rapid development. That's why I said today I wouldn't be surprised at all if we got a tropical depression out of this. If you look all the way at the beginning of the satellite loop, there's not much thunderstorm activity, and then this thing just blows up in this area here. And you can actually see that on the visible satellite, which we'll look at in a second. It's really cool. I'll show you a second, but what's really cool, when the sun is first coming up in the Atlantic Ocean, it kind of goes low on the storm, the light does, and gives you a really cool depth look at it. Kind of what's going on with the storm. Let me get my little pin here. Boop. So you see that you got the winds coming around like this on the top of the storm. It's important to remember when you look at these satellite loops that you're looking at a stacked kind of 3D image on a 2D plane. So you kind of have to look for the layers. So you can see the outflow from the storm is right here. The trade winds are running this way, as they usually do. And you can see some southerlies coming up from down here. And then you can also see, if you look right here, you can see these little clouds that are going this way. So the lower half of the storm is going this way. The upper half of the storm is going this way. I've just drawn all over the screen, as I usually do. And basically what that means is the storm is getting sheared. Basically the top half is going to be leaning. Well, for you guys, it's like this, leaning like this. So that kind of hinders development, but it was a lot more severe yesterday. It was a lot more obvious yesterday that the storm was getting leaned over by these upper level winds. Today, the storm actually looks pretty vertically stacked with these huge thunderstorms blowing up in here. So it's looking like a healthy storm. We do have some shear out of the west, like I said before, which will hinder its performance a bit. But otherwise, it is looking pretty healthy. So the next satellite loop. So here's the visible satellite loop I wanted to show you guys. And I just think it's so cool. I don't usually get to see these loops because I'm usually asleep at this time of day. But if you pause it, if you pause the satellite loop, right as the sun is peeking over, you get this really cool effect where the sun is really low on the horizon, kind of over here. And why did that get so big? Oh no, over here. Hey, the sun is peeking over the horizon over here, and you can kind of see depth, right? So you see these shadows in here, and you can kind of see these thunderstorms are just blowing up, and that correlates with our other satellite image, kind of showing the intensification of the storm. These thunderstorms here in the middle are reaching way higher in the atmosphere than, say, this kind of area of clouds over here that's saying that this storm is indeed intensifying, which actually means a lot for the forecast track. We'll go over that in a second, but I'll let this loop run for you. There we go. There you go. It almost looks like there's a little eye wall trying to form, but that's just a shadow. I was looking at kind of this area right in here, but that's just a shadow from the low sun. So like I said, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we get a tropical depression out of this today from the National Hurricane Center. So I brought this image up here just to kind of show you guys like what's going on with the steering flow, or what's going on with the models we're going to look at in a second. So the trade winds in the Atlantic always blow this way, and it keeps doing that for some reason. I got a big old fat arrow right there. Always blow that way, and you can see that they're continuing to blow this way on the storm. If you kind of can see these kind of underneath clouds going this way, so the overall flow is going to be east to west, and then you've got a high pressure system here, and a high pressure system here, and a low pressure system here. Okay, and basically what's going to happen is the trade winds are a lower level kind of steering flow, and these high pressure systems and low pressure systems are upper level steering flows. It's important to know that, because the stronger a hurricane gets, the taller it gets, and the more it becomes influenced by upper level flows instead of lower level flows. So right now the hurricane's just marching west, and then this intensification is exactly what the hurricane models have predicted. And once it gets larger and more established, it's more likely to get picked up into these upper level steering flows, which in general are going to push it this way and out of the Gulf of Mexico, or out of the Southern Caribbean and missing the Gulf of Mexico. But here's something that can happen that some of the spaghetti models are showing a little more agreement today than yesterday. If this trough here moves this way, which it's currently doing, it's going to take this high pressure system that's right here, and it's going to move it over the Gulf of Mexico. And what that would look like is you would have a high pressure system sitting like this, and the hurricane will kind of meander this way and stall. And it could even end up going into Mexico here if it stalls for long enough. But basically, all hurricanes in this part of the world at this time of year, they want to go north. They will all go north eventually because of the weather patterns in this part of the world. It would be pretty unprecedented to see a hurricane march across Mexico like this and then go out to sea. But so we are expecting a northern turn. The question is, when is that northern turn going to happen? Because like I said before, if this thing stalls and doesn't get as intense as we think it is, and it keeps getting influenced by those lower level winds instead of the upper level winds, this trough could move out and allow this high pressure system to move in behind it. And if that happens, it's going to block. It's going to block the hurricane. It'll sit, and it'll sit, and it'll sit. And what could end up happening is this high pressure system moves out, and then you end up with something like this. Okay, which is typically, if you live in Florida, if you live in Louisiana, you live in Mississippi, this is what you're used to seeing, right? And this has been a year of weird. You know what I mean? We're used to seeing these Southern Caribbean storms eventually make their way into the Gulf of Mexico, and then into Florida, into Mississippi, into Louisiana, into Alabama, and maybe even into Texas every once in a while. But this one's different because it's getting blocked by the high pressure system, and it's wanting to go in between the two highs right here and out. But the real question is, will it develop quickly and get influenced by those, or will it stay a low-level storm because of the shear we talked about earlier and meander its way down here into the bottom of the Gulf before it then gets picked up and thrown into the southern U.S.? That is actually still a question right now, and we'll see the spaghetti models and everything. Not as much of a question as yesterday, but the National Hurricane Center certainly agrees because they have not put that direction into their official forecasting yet. Okay, so this is a GFS model. This is the 06Z run, so the latest and greatest about an hour ago. And as you can see, it kind of takes this hurricane and just sweeps it up out of the way. Let's see if we can get a better look at this. Actually, yeah, this looks good. There we go. So it has a storm forming down here. Can you guys see that? Yep. Down here. And then it kind of just meanders around like I was saying. And then it kind of takes this really sharp northern turn, kind of makes a loop for a minute, and then gets swept out to sea. I don't really think this is what's going to happen. I really do, just because of history and the way things work in this way of the world, I really do think that this storm's going to get farther west before something like that happens. But it all depends on the intensity, right? So at this point, the GFS has this at 973 millibars, which is pretty strong, and this is 60 hours from now. So if we go say 48 hours from now, 991, that's pretty strong. So the GFS is saying, hey, this thing's going to develop, it's going to get tall and big, and it's going to get picked up by the upper levels, and it's just going to get swept out of here. I still see some shear on satellite over, though it is intensifying pretty quickly today. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of what goes on with the National Hurricane Center's forecast when it comes out later today, when they name it Melissa, which I'm sure is what's going to happen. I picked some terrible regions for this today. Okay, so this is the European model. So you see that the European model starts it down here and does move it a little further west, before eventually kind of meandering it just below this kind of Cuba, Jamaica area. And actually, I think has it split the island of Hispaniola and Cuba almost evenly. Oh no, see, and this is what I'm talking about. So look at, if I go all the way back, look how this thing just meanders down here, meanders. I mean, the thing is just sitting still. And then eventually it gets swept out into the sea because, it's going to be interacted. And you can see the triggering action, the catalyst of it getting swept out is the intensification on this model. So you see it gets big and big and bigger and bigger and more powerful, 949 now, and then it sweeps it out, has a direct hit with the island of Cuba, and then kind of the Bahamas, and then goes out to sea. So as you can see, this is not really our usual kind of path that a storm of this location takes. And that's why I say there's a lot of uncertainty in this forecast. I mean, for the Euro to just have this thing meandering down there like that is pretty interesting for a storm. And it's been an interesting year, folks. It's been an interesting year. We get these storms that are really complicated. Forecast. It hasn't really been a standard one. I mean, if this was a standard storm, anybody who lives in Florida can tell you. They just take one look at the storm, and then you say, hey, where's this thing going? And they're going to say it's going to do this because that's what they do, right? And that's just not the case with this one. We're going to have to wait and see. There's going to be a bunch of meandering, a lot of shifting of the flows, a lot of ridges and troughs moving in and out of place, and to see kind of what influence takes the most precedent. But as of right now, all the models do see it getting swept out to sea, and it's just the timing of when. If it gets a little further west before that happens, we could see a hit on Florida. So keep your guard up, guys. These October storms tend to be very strong. Some of our strongest hurricanes in history are late October, like Halloween storms. So definitely keep your guard up with this one. Okay, here's the AI European. So basically what this is it's an AI model that is doing the same thing as an LLM would do for speech, is trying to predict the next word, or in this case, the next movement of the hurricane, instead of actually calculating the physics. And honestly, it's been doing a pretty good job this year. And the Google DeepMind that we'll look at in a second does the same thing. But it kind of just has a low down here, 1,005, 1,004, 1,003, kind of meander. Oh, it's going to hit Hispaniola. No, it's not. It's going back down. We're all just kind of no idea what's going on. And then out to sea, like all the other models, basically over the Bahamas, just like its big brother, the European. Here comes the ensemble forecast. So this is basically what you're looking at here is the European ensemble members. So every time they run a hurricane model, they don't just run it once, they run it a bunch of times. As you guys, if you guys follow me, you know that. And each solution gets put out as a member. Each member is a red number on this map here. So that's these are all possibilities that the European says. So we're going down here, we're meandering, we're kind of just chilling out right now. This is 48 hours in the future, chilling. And honestly, for 54 hours out, this is actually a pretty decent spread. This is pretty tight. So all of the European models or ensembles are in agreement with each other for the most point, up to 54 hours out, which is pretty unprecedented. That doesn't usually happen. And then as soon as you get to the 60-hour mark, that's when all the divergence starts happening. You have half the models basically, or less than half, taking this thing out to taking this thing over Cuba and out, kind of like, or over Hispaniola and out, kind of like the bigger mean ensemble or forecast model showed. And then the other half of the models, sorry guys, kind of just have it meandering down here in the southern Caribbean, and that's just kind of the story of the day. And then moving it a little further, we're still meandering. Some of the models take it closer to Mexico. Still, most of the models just out here in the ocean, and then eventually it does get swept up. And then gets taken out. What's pretty impressive, I will say, about these ensembles is that we are at 210 hours on the forecast for this current view, and the ensembles are pretty tight. That's a pretty tight grouping. I don't know if you guys remember the storm from earlier in the year, the one that was kind of meandering down here and making its way up towards Carolina. You had some ensembles saying it was going to be over here, and some that was going to be over here, and there was one over here, and then we had landfalls, and it was a mess. And this is a complicated forecast, but it's a much more understood complicated forecast than the other one was, as you can see from the ensemble members here. I wonder, do any of the ensemble members make it a landfall? Maybe a little here. Miami. Oh, got another one in Key West, Miami area. Very interesting. We have to keep an eye on it. And here's your Google DeepMind. Another AI model. This one has been pretty on point this year, but it's a little out to lunch on this one. If I just run it, you'll see it thinks we've got a depression, storm, and then a category 1 hurricane forms right about yonder, and then it goes north, and then it goes west, and then it goes east. It's kind of like just makes this S in the Southern Caribbean, and they have it up to a category 3 hurricane when it impacts Cuba, the eastern little part of Cuba there, and in the island of Hispaniola. It's a very large storm too, so it would have effects on both of these. And then has it come up and just south of Bermuda, missing the Bahamas entirely, which I guess this would be like the best case scenario, because there's a whole lot of humanity down here, and it just splits the difference and goes right past all of them. So, I don't know about this S shape, but the Google DeepMind has been very good this year, and I'm very excited to see how it performs today. So, So here's our spaghetti tracks. This is the last thing we'll look at. This is kind of like all of the different models that we have access to and what they think is going to happen. And you can kind of see that same kind of S thing going on before eventually getting swept out to sea. But I will remind you that the National Hurricane Center, who I have the utmost trust in, has not put that into their forecast yet. So I think if you live anywhere in here, you should definitely keep an eye on this storm, because it is just meandering down here, and depending on how long it takes to develop, how tall it gets, what the influencing currents do, it could be a very different story. If it meanders down here longer, it's going to go further west. So just like all hurricane forecasts, it's a timing equation. Where will it be? How big will it be when it finally starts hitting those influencing currents That we don't know yet, but stay tuned, and we'll keep you guys up to date. If anything major happens with the forecast today, I will do another video. If not, I will see you guys tomorrow with the next look at the hurricane. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a nice day.